Awesome. Amazing. I think that's pretty much everyone who's registered. So, Sage, should we get started?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Take it away. Take it away. This is all for you.
Okay. Well, welcome all who are here to uncover your spiritual gifts with, I'm going to say old soul women, but Michael, I have a quiz coming up for men as well. I found that many of these archetypes fit for men as well, and you wouldn't be the first one to take the quiz or to listen to the material, so hopefully it can be useful. So, how many of you have been referred to as old souls? Quite a few, okay. And how many of you would refer to yourself that way? Okay, some, right? Okay. All right. So, how many of you feel as if you truly understand what that means to be an old soul? Okay, fewer. Okay. And how many of you have incorporated your old soul self into what you are, how you live, who you are in relationship, how you work, and even what you eat? Okay, so maybe a lot fewer. Okay. So I knew that I was different from a very early age. And not just because I was born clairvoyant. You knew that was kind of a journey into itself, but I knew I wasn't like other kids. In kindergarten, here's a funny story for you. In kindergarten, I went to an Episcopal school for a few years, and they had a play area for sort of the 1 to, I don't know how many grades. They had maybe up to 5th grade there. They had blacktop and games and rings and things like that. But for the kindergartners, they allowed us to play in the garden of a local home that was no longer in use. Now, long story short, apparently the man who lived there with his family had murdered them all, and the house had never been put on the market or uh and the garden that we used to play in, which was really fun, happened to be actually at the cemetery for the home. Who knew? And we would at recess run around and play. It was very fun. And I would run around and run around. And then I would get up on what I thought was a step, um, get up on this step, and I'd raise my arms up and I would chant and carry on. And the kids would run around me and then fall at my feet. Okay, so not usual behavior for a kindergartner. I mean, at that time, I didn't know that I was like calling in the four corners, and I was an energetic being, bar none. And I came to understand that over time. But, even in high school, when we all played light as a feather, well, I could do that stuff. I could just lift somebody up without touching them, and people would just be freaked out, and I kind of freaked myself out. But it was just really part of who I was. And even my first job was for NASA at JPL in Pasadena. And I worked in spectrometry, and I'd put materials into the spectrograph, and they would, spectrometer, and it would generate the spectrograph, but I could see the image that was coming before it printed on the page. And, I began to understand, like, oh, that's kind of weird. Um, and really, until I was about 36, I went into training as an emotional intuitive. Then a little later, trained as a shaman, and then eventually began leading the way as other people with other people. And so I really knew that I was different. I knew that I had different kind of capacity and capabilities, even as I was doing the very right hand conservative training as a psychologist. I knew there was more that I needed to attend to sort of on the left side. And from the very beginning, I am an old soul. I did past life regressions in my training that took me nearly back to the beginning of time. And I found my way back to my place in the old guard as a winged angel. And, you know, it it was there that I really uncovered that old soul self. But despite the fact that I knew I was an old soul, I didn't really come to understand its value or its power or its uniqueness until I nearly died 9 times, which should have been a dead giveaway, pun intended. And it wasn't until I was recovering from a bone marrow transplant that I really got the clearest of downloads to understand what happens to old souls when they are activated versus deactivated. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I would love to find out if anybody took the Old Soul Woman quiz. I don't know how many people took it. Okay, at least a couple. All right, and you can take it later for sure. But I thought I'd give you some introduction to the archetypes. And if there are people who want to chime in and let us know what archetype you scored as, I mean, that's also would be great. I'm going to stick my chat on so I can see the answers. Yeah, well, Mish, I knew that about you. Okay, so the first archetype that came through for me is called the angel. Surprise, surprise. And I see a lot of, there are a couple people chiming in, angel, 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 angel. Well, the angel is a foundational archetype. So many people can identify with that angelic archetype. And then they get an overlay of other characteristics, qualities, or even another archetype. And there's a way, like if I said to you, all right, on the quiz in this question, I know that sounded good, but just like put this answer, your archetype would lean in and probably select and correct for the archetype that you might live your life as. So know that if you got angel, that's actually fairly common. And it's even common to answer in 2 ways and have 2 archetypes come up. So the angel is the representation of pure love. They see the best in all people, beings, and things, even situations. They're not Pollyannas. I mean, I guess you might meet one that was a Pollyanna, but Pollyannas tend to kind of be new souls, not old souls. They just see love and beauty in all things. That they can see what lays beneath, even if things are rough, kind of on the surface. They see that love and the potential for love underneath. All right, we also have, let's see, at least one fairy. So that's also lovely. I'm going to get to you in just one more time. So the second archetype is the harmonizer. And they are born to be love, to see love, and to bring love through all relationships. One of their clear missions is to help others communicate so clearly and cleanly that they're capable of love. So they're born as the counselor type, the advocate type, the advisor type. So there are a lot of harmonizers out there who are therapists or clinicians, and they might particularly enjoy working with couples because that's their sweet spot. They want love to come through relationship. They want to be able to clear things and clean things up enough that people can be in love and experience love. And then there's the fairy. And the fairy is aligned with Mother Earth and all of her creatures, including the earth itself, her plants, her animals. They tend to be more of loners when it comes to humans. And they're very, very selective of the humans that they're willing to spend time with. It takes a lot for humans to earn their trust, less so actually than animals. Their mission is to speak for those who are voiceless, or whose language we don't easily speak. So I would say that many fairies speak animal, and probably intuitively. They don't necessarily hear it out loud, but one of our mentors in our circle of essentials is a fairy, and she has a herd. She has donkeys, she has goats, she has horses, and she lives on a farm. And she goes out and she communes with them and she delivers their messages. And the people that she works with, it's exactly the kind of healing they need, and the messages are spot on. So fairies do tend to, they're the green thumbs, they know innately what is wrong with situations and circumstances, even when those beings can't speak. I mean, our flowers and our plants turn brown if we don't give them water. But yes, we begin to see that they have even more complex messages than give me water. Um, and then there's the Magdalene, and I see somebody just appeared as a Magdalene. So the Magdalene experiences the world through her body and assists others to do the same. The Magdalene is all things sensual. And you have to almost take a moment for that, because we are not necessarily saying like every sexualized being out there is a Magdalene. That's not exactly true. But a Magdalene would feel lost without her body. A Magdalene wants to put her hands on it and get in it and feel it throughout her body. A Magdalene with emotions will trust that her body is telling her what it needs to know. Um, yeah, I'll say more about how they play out, but their mission in this world is really to enable other people to do the same, to really tap in and grasp life through their bodies. So then we come to the wise warrior, and I'll just say wise warrior born, not bred. So there are a lot of people out there who become warriors, and maybe even wise warriors, because of the things that have happened to them. So there are people that experience abuse or trauma and they become attorneys, and they fight the good fight because of what's happened to them. Wise warriors are probably the rarest of the archetypes. A truly born wise warrior, um, because it doesn't require that anything has happened to them for them to want to fight the good fight. Um, the mission for the wise warrior is justice and to bring voice to the voiceless. Much like the fairy, um, there is something they speak intuitively. There are things they glean intuitively, not just what has maybe happened to somebody, but why or how it's happened, and how to engage justice. And it's not just throw that guy in prison. There's more to it than that. So they aren't necessarily confrontational or violent unless the circumstances require it. And then they are absolutely whatever they need to be. All right. So I think I'm a wise warrior. So I kind of get that. I can score. I mean, obviously I wrote the quiz, so I know how to score in any direction, but I'll consistently score as an angel. But if I sit with who I truly am and what is true for me, I'll score wise warrior most of the time. So, like, what's the benefit to knowing, what kind of old soul you are? I mean, why even, who cares? Like a quiz. Oh, that was fun to take. It's 8, 9 questions, whatever. Oh, yeah, I can say, oh, yeah, this is me. Okay, you could say the same thing about the love languages, right? Like good to know your love language, except it extends beyond that, right? You don't want to just know, oh, I'm an acts of service person. Like you actually want to know, like, why is that even important? Because otherwise you've just kind of wasted your 5 minutes taking a quiz or 5 hours reading a book or whatever. So let's talk about what some of the strengths are for those archetypes. And now I would love to get your input as well. I'll talk a little bit and maybe we'll talk about the angel and maybe even allow people to be unmuted to share, if that seems right to them or, yeah, okay, let's do that. All right. So the angel, she can heal the hearts of those that are ailing, and she does it flawlessly and kind of without thought. She can identify your best qualities, values, skills, and characteristics. She can see who you're actually meant to be. So I'm just curious about some of the angels that are here listening today. Does that fit? Do you find that in yourself? I see
I'll
Misha
say
does.
I'm like that. Yeah, I think creating this group, this uncovering spiritual gifts group, was really about giving people the opportunity to step into a space that they weren't, not that they weren't ready to do, but it was almost like someone had to hold out a hand into that space. And I think that, yeah, a lot of the people on this call who, yeah, they just needed a hand to allow them to give themselves permission to step up for what they had all along.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
I
I've come
think
up
that
with for
go ahead,
me.
please.
Sorry.
Yeah, go
Please go
ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just that I've also come up as an angel as well. And as you know, I run little groups as well myself on Meetup with the healing and so on and so forth. So it's quite interesting. Both you and I have come up as angels.
Wonderful. Okay. So, one of the things that I think is just so clear about the angel is especially the intuitive angels an old soul who is aware that they are an old soul and who has tapped into those intuitive abilities. Um, I know one of the things that is fantastic for me as a therapist, but not great in relationship, is I see people as they're meant to be, as they can be. I see people at their optimum. As a therapist, it's like, oh, I've got the yellow brick road. Nice. All I have to do is follow that and take them there. Great. I'll help them develop those skills, bring that stuff out in themselves. But in relationship, it's super important that you see people as they are and what they're embracing themselves as. Um, because you can't really put anybody on a pedestal and expect to have that relationship work. So, pros and cons, right? So, let's talk about the harmonizer. So, the harmonizer can enable you to speak clearly and communicate your desires and your needs, like super clearly. She can remedy hurt between partners and friends, and she can enable you to see how you're similar rather than different when you're in conflict. I mean, I would love for us to all, be able to revel in our differences as well as in our similarities. But her mission and one of her greatest strengths is that she can when there's conflict, when people are um, showing their differences loud and clear, she can also naturally remind them and show them the ways in which um, being together is an asset. How about I don't think we had any harmonizers that are listening. At least I missed it if there were. Um, And like I said, they're natural therapists. They're definitely the people that, even in grade school, or high school, they were the one that everybody talked to. They were sort of what we would refer to as a paraprofessional. I would actually think there are probably a lot of harmonizers that are also hairstylist, which one of my Magdalene's calls her therapist. They are people who can naturally engage, communicate, help clarify, and again, sort of bring you out of you and allow you to be pleased with that and to be able to share that with others. So whatever language you're speaking, not necessarily what comes out of your mouth, the harmonizer is there to enhance that. So the fairy, the fairy can heal the earth. It's not just the green thumb. One of my angel fairies in Ireland is works to heal the land, and she takes people all over the world healing sections of land. So she heals the earth. She can heal its creatures, plants and animals both. She speaks their language. And often she can translate. I shared with you about one of our other mentors who, is ensures that the messages that come from her horses and her goats and her donkeys can be heard by others. She's vital to the reparation of our planet. So, if you thought we were going to just get where we need to go with some good old wise warriors, the answer is without the fairies, our planet won't last. We'll decimate it because we just don't have the ability to listen unless those fairies are really guiding us and showing us and translating for us and helping us understand. It's not just go hug a tree. I mean, that would be good, but it goes so far beyond that. And even the fairies who are doing land healing, they are responding to the needs of the land. It isn't just please water me, but you see the dry patch, you have the brown patch that needs water. It's the deep emotional issues that can be held in the land as well. On one of the trips to Ireland that I made, we visited a church where really egregious, terrible crimes happened. And she had been working with colleagues to heal this land for a long period of time. And it is in an area that is, a tourist attraction, not like Disneyland, but a beautiful place to be around it. But if you enter this church, the depth of the pain and dare I say, evil is really heavy. And for somebody who is vulnerable, they could get hijacked quite easily, in my opinion. And so one of the things that I said to her after translating a lot of what had occurred there and kind of what had been left behind, I said, I don't think that this is land to be healed. I think it stands here as a reminder that these things have to be remembered as they are. And probably people should not be entering this space. Better to allow it to be sort of a memorial and give some information around, on plaques, than to have people going in and potentially being impacted by it. So fairies are, their intention and their mission and their strength is they can actually heal the land. They can heal animals. It's, all of your veterinarians, but a lot of land and planet advocates as well. Okay, let's go on to the Magdalene. I think we had one. The Magdalene is your ultimate grounding force. And that maybe is an interesting way to put it, but she can bring you into your body like nothing else can. We think of food and drink as being grounding. We think of the earth as being grounding. But there are times where you think of the hurricane, right? And the way it decimated things. Right now, many of us can't ground because there's so much turmoil. And a Magdalene can bring you into your body and help you ground, even when it's not safe actually to ground on the earth. during a hurricane. I actually had to contact one of my fairies who wanted desperately to ground and to heal and to help. And I said, get up, go ground in your body and ground to starlight if you have to, because it'll make you crazy and it could really upset you if you try to ground in Mother Earth right now. She's not capable of doing that right now. So Magdalene's will allow you to ground in your own body. She can teach you how to live there. Even if your body hasn't been a space that you've been comfortable living in before, because maybe you've had trauma or abuse, a Magdalene can really guide you back to who your body is, and she can teach you the language of your body and how to listen and how to unlock memories and powers that live there. The wise warrior, she'll fight the good fight until she dies. She's a tireless advocate for those who are helpless or hopeless or voiceless. Unlike the harmonizer, her mission is action oriented. Not that learning to communicate is not an action, it is, and it's skill based, but this is different. The wise warrior is going to find solution for anything that stands in the way of a life worth living. So justice, as I said before, it might be adjudication or imprisonment or something like that. But justice might also be going backwards in time and setting a record straight that is wreaking havoc with the way you live your life now. So curious if anybody else wanted to ping in on, these descriptions and how they do or don't fit you.
Hey, this is Melissa. I had the Magdalene. I would have thought I would have been a harmonizer instead. Just
Yeah, like I said, it's
thoughts.
interesting. We can't, if we just test the old soul, through a quiz, we are likely to be mixing waters a bit, because many of us are trained to be a certain way. I was definitely in my family trained to be a harmonizer,
Yeah,
and I've
same.
worked my way out of that. So when I take the quiz, I can score correctly because of all the work I've done to understand the difference between who I was trained to be and who I came in as. So
Okay.
you might even take the quiz again based on that and say, if I could uplift the overlay of my family and everything I was trained to do, how would I answer these questions? And you might find that you score immediately, a different way. So I'm always encouraging people, like, try it a couple of times and see how you ping out.
Okay.
Anyone else want to ping in? Okay. So it's great to know our strengths, right? It's like, oh, that's interesting to know. Okay, so, but I probably wouldn't make a living out of just bringing that, value to people. I mean, it would be lovely to, but most people come in to see me, especially as a psychologist and breakthrough coach, because things are not working, or they're not working as well as folks feel like they should be. And so I thought we'd just kind of change it up and talk about the challenges of the deactivated or impaired archetype. And I hate to use the word impaired, but it's probably the right one. So I don't mean to be offensive, but we'll use it for now. So when the angel has been deactivated, and when I say deactivated, there are many reasons why we put the old soul in the vault. Probably the most common reason we put the old soul away for safekeeping is that we're in danger. And we don't want anyone taking the very core of who we are. So we mostly unconsciously quickly put it away, lock it up, stow the keys, in a hidden source, and then we go and meet the danger, head on without our old soul, which, if anybody's really listening to this, you can tell what kind of damage that's going to do. It, trying to manage danger when you're deactivated, especially as an old soul, is Oh, leads to trouble. Leads to trouble, not down the road, but right away and then down the road too. So when an angel has been deactivated or has deactivated herself, even, she struggles to see the red flags where they are. She might not even see them as orange or yellow. She just might not see them at all because her, strength is seeing the best in people, right? And seeing the good in all people. And by and large, I would say I am definitely a glass half full kind of gal. I'm a realist, but I see the good in most people. I'm not a real fan of the demon seed. Um, Although there is some good research now that points to, a gene for sociopathy. So I'd love to see more of that research and see how that really plays out. But for the most part, I think there probably is something inherently good about most people. And then they have experiences and then they are trained to, um, live life a different way. Now, sometimes they lose their soul in the process, and um, then there is no boundary for their behavior, and that becomes highly problematic. For the angel, I talk a lot about toxic narcissism, which includes toxic borderline people and toxic sociopaths. And so when they're in the presence, what the angel experiences is that gaping need for support and healing. So this is like her call to action. She's like, oh my God, I've got to fix that. I've got to uplift. I've got to heal that. I can do something about that. But she doesn't see the red flag that says, and if you step into that incredibly messy, dangerous energy, that person will hook you and likely suck you dry. And getting out of that situation once you're deactivated and, separate from your old soul and depleted in your human self, in your meat suit, um, it's gonna take a minute, and it will probably take another person or persons to get you out of that situation. So we see a lot of women who have been um, abused. They sort of loved the charm and the energy, and they followed it, and they followed their mission to heal the gaping hole, and then they get so deactivated, so depleted that they cannot exit the abusive relationship until something else happens. Oftentimes, if they have had children with that person, um, if the child becomes abused, or if he or she goes after the child, there's enough maternal instinct. It kicks in something in the old soul to like, uh-oh, heal and protect this one beyond all others, or these ones beyond all others. And that may be enough to pull the old soul, up out of the vault enough to help with exit. And then the real healing begins from them. So let's talk about the harmonizer. So when the harmonizer is deactivated, because love and desires to love are the norm, she'll turn herself inside and out to ensure that everyone has everything they need and will make it all look good without caring for her own needs. So probably one of the stronger stereotypes of the harmonizer when they're deactivated is the trophy wife. It is that person who makes everything look beautiful all the time, and her children are beautiful, and they're beautifully dressed, and she's beautiful, and her nails are always done, and she's always got her get up and go, going, and the home is beautiful, and it's the right home, and I'm just getting tired even thinking about it. Not that I wouldn't love everything to be beautiful. You're seeing a background screen because I moved a week ago, and behind me is a stack of boxes that need to be put away. But the harmonizer, when she's deactivated, she can't help but to serve. So she'll wait hand and foot on that guy or gal who becomes demanding. Initially they're charming, they say all the right things, they make the beautiful validations, and the harmonizer loves that, right? Because it feels like love. And once the hook is in, unfortunately, that sense of being loved goes away. And so she starts to chase her tail. If I do more of this, if I do more of that, if I'm more of this or more of that, or if my children are a better example, then he'll be happy. Then the love will come back. Then I'll feel that again. So you can see how quickly it becomes a hamster's wheel. And she doesn't even have the time, nor will she make the time to care for herself and what's really going on, which is that she is being sucked dry. And we refer to the toxic folks as soul suckers for a reason, because ultra women, they're like the best kind of gasoline. They're the best food, the best nourishment for somebody who doesn't have their best interests at heart. So, all right, let's turn to the fairy. The connection to Mother Earth and its inhabitants can be very isolating for the fairy. I mean, they can love it, and that can be their primary position and role, but it's lonely out there. And it can be very isolating because she probably doesn't make friends easily. She certainly doesn't trust humans easily. And she may not develop those kinds of social skills, like the human social skills, quite as much as the other skills she has for speaking with, connecting to, and healing the earth and its inhabitants. So even when she does find something to attend that she wants to attend, um, she may not have those social skills that allow her to engage and then take a step back to listen, and she might just dig in her heels and really be as passionate as she is, which can be great in certain situations. But for those who don't have her best interest at heart, or for the fairies that get deactivated, she'll be seen as good game. Like if a woman is abducted or taken by somebody who wants to abuse her, if she fights back, that's good game. Somebody who really likes that, likes to see how much power they can exert over that person. So fairies can be, can step into dangerous positions because they may not have developed all of those skills necessary to engage and safeguard when it comes to humans who don't have their best interests at heart. Okay, let's talk about the Magdalene. I mentioned a little bit of this before. So at her foundation, it's all things sensual. And that can incorporate a more assertive sexuality as well. And that can be misunderstood as being purely sexual or as a sex object. And so Magdalenes, when they are deactivated, may be exploited for their sexuality and even for their sensuality. Uh, she may not be respected for her unique skills and talents and characteristics by those who don't understand her. She may simply be seen as sexual and as an object to be used, rather than somebody who has this incredible devotion to the language of the body and the wisdom of the body and the wisdom of everything tactile. These folks are, the classic foodies, right? I mean, why would they bother to eat something that was anything less than a sensual experience? And it's not just what they're consuming, it's how they consume. So it's how they consume anything. Oh, what a beautiful environment we just get to see from Julie. And the wise warrior. Let's talk about what happens when you deactivate a wise warrior. Her strength is also her undoing. She'll fight to the death and she'll stand for her cause, unclear that she may not need to do it this way. She could instead, pick up and battle another day. Pick up, shift gears, battle again. And a wise warrior who's deactivated, well, all she'll see is the battle. All she'll see is, I will drive this forward. And if I get killed in the process, I'll have died nobly. So she may be very opinionated. She may get on her soapbox. It can alienate other people. So again, like the fairy, she may be so devoted to the cause that she's not kind of learning the social skills that are needed to actually, get in through that back door and make some headways for the cause. That aren't just the battling, but learning to sort of battle in a more intuitively driven way. That would be like an activated wise warrior, but a deactivated one can get mired up in the battle. She doesn't trust easily, so she doesn't make friends easily. And, that can be very lonely. But when she does make a friend, it's for life. She will, and she will have that person's back forever. So curious, as we're getting closer to the end of our time together, can any of you relate to any of those challenges that have come up through the description of these archetypes? Oh, okay. Some people are saying they can identify. And it's okay if you don't feel like outing yourself, but if you do, you can unmute yourself and just share any of the if any of those challenges particularly resonated for you. Okay, let me just ask one last question, and that is, like, why would you integrate your old soul into the way you live your life? And here are just a few of my answers. Because if you don't, you disempower yourself. Imagine living your life without your superpower. Why would you do that? Like, if life could be easier, why wouldn't you choose that? If manifesting could be easier, why wouldn't you choose that? I could also say, because if you don't, other people are not going to thrive since they don't get to experience what you have to offer. So oftentimes I would say in these kinds of forums, that's the driver or motivator for people to really begin to do this work, that they realize, oh, I have an inclination that I'm a healer or an advocate or a counselor or a coach, or an engineer or whatever it is. And I feel like there's more, and I'm not quite sure how to get there. I feel like if I were just more motivated, or if I were just more confident, or right. And by engaging your superpowers, by activating your old soul, by taking your old soul out of the vault and putting it in the driver's seat, you now have access to an eternal power source. Now, that doesn't mean your meat suit's gonna live forever. But, it's gonna give you a leg up on accessing the energy that you need to learn those skills, or to project those skills, or to utilize those skills, so that when you're working with clients, it comes through you rather than from you. And that, I'm preaching to the choir now. I know all of you know that. But we often just think of that sort of global source energy. Let me just plug into universal energy. Now, when I do Reiki, I do say, all right, I'm plugging into Reiki energy, like, let it work through me. It does feel a little bit broader, but for most of us, it's hard to just relate to God, source, goddess, universal energy. I don't need it to be anthropomorphized like a god that sits on a throne in heaven in the clouds. But when we can really relate to the God that comes through us as source energy, as old souls, with the assistance of the archetypes, well, then that becomes much easier to imagine putting that version of you into the driver's seat. That means that it's easier to adapt. And this one, I don't want it to sound like a threat, but I, for some reason, want to say that by not engaging your old soul, by not incorporating it into the way you live your life, have your relationships, do your work, feed yourself. If that mission is important enough, I mean, you could experience really tough divine two by four therapy. And I have done that. And I've done it enough to say it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's not fun to experience. That whole like course correction stuff that happens, I would rather just have it be easy and to be able to activate the old soul and live life that way and not have a divine force sort of whacking you upside the head to say, you're not paying attention. If you could pay attention, things would be easier. It would be easier to help your clients. It would be easier to help your children. It would be easier to help yourself. So I'm a real fan of just avoiding the divine 2x4 therapy as well. So, all right, we have just about 10 minutes left. And I would love to answer any questions. I'd love to hear if there are any takeaways from this talk and the information I've provided to you. Yeah. So please feel free to unmute yourself to share any feedback that you might have. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
I have a quick question. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
You mentioned something about food. Did I understand that correctly? So is there,
Yes.
I'm just curious about that.
Sure. Okay, well, this is a fun one. So here are the food types. You know, they have blood types for what you should eat if you're this blood type. Well, actually, you can follow your food types through your archetypes as well. So, for instance, an angel will could be a foodie, but will veer towards comfort food. It'll be the food that makes her smile. It'll be the food that feels nourishing, sort of to the soul is what I was going to say, nourishing, pleasant, but it'll be probably comfort food. So there are a lot of angels out there that have to just be mindful that if their comfort food is not particularly healthy, that they may have to sort of give themselves comfort food at certain times or in certain amounts, so as not to, end up with other problems. So that's the angel. Harmonizers will probably whatever the folks around them are eating or requiring them to cook. You can tell I've been working with a lot of deactivated harmonizers. They'll be, the moms who are eating the remainders of the mac and cheese for their children, or eating meat because that's what their spouse wants them to cook. For activated the harmonizers, they'll probably actually have a more they'll have a more reasonable approach to food. So they like things that are symmetrical. They like things that are pleasant to look at. They'll like to eat things that are aesthetically pleasing. So pleasant to eat, pleasant to look at, pleasant circumstances, not to the level of the foodie, probably, but yeah, that will allow them to feel like this is a loving experience. Thanksgiving with harmonizer is just to die for, really. Because if they're an activated harmonizer, like everything will just look great and be great. And the people who are there will all just love being there. And even if there are 14 dishes that are sides and nobody brought the turkey, like everybody, it'll be just lovely. And so the harmonizer is kind of a little bit about harmonizers. Fairies are more likely going to be our macrobiotic vegans. They will probably be averse to eating anything with a face. They will eat more often plants that they've grown. And they'll explain to the plant how the plant will be taken to nourish their bodies so that they can do more work for the earth. They have a very contracted way of eating in order to be on the planet. That's a lot of the fairies that I work with have definitely a vegetarian approach, but vegan probably more often. Magdalene. Okay, now here's our true foodies. Because it is a sensual experience to eat. A Magdalene would probably be happier to feed her lover or be fed by her lover. Everything about the eating experience is going to be, it's got to feel good going in. It's got to feel good when it's there. It's got to be like even tactily. I have a friend who's a Magdalene, and to go do sushi with a Magdalene, we learned that she couldn't eat uni because it was not a sensual experience for her going in her mouth. But, give her some yellowtail sashimi, she's like, oh, yes. So, they're not one size fits all. Every Magdalene develops her own way of being with food and with the feeding experience. But again, the environment is a big part of that as well. She can't go into I'll use sushi again, a sushi restaurant that's loud and where stuff is just thrown onto the plate. She would rather it be a more intimate setting where she can really love her food and love being in the process. And wise warriors, you probably find more of your keto and paleo people here. They will be food is nutrition people. They may like food and have favorites. For sure, there may be things that they find comforting in food, but they'll override that to what do I need? How many calories do I need to pull that all-nighter or to go head to head in battle, in court or whatever? They'll be very mindful of how food fuels them. That's a little bit that's my one little thing. I don't talk a lot about it, but definitely the type will follow the food map, activated more often than not. Any other questions? Can archetypes change over time when one makes growth in spirituality? Absolutely. I spoke to this a little bit, how are you trained to be versus who did you come onto the planet as? Like, who is your old soul? So like I said, I was trained to be a harmonizer, and that worked out okay for me. But a deactivated harmonizer was not a good role for me. So being able to unearth my wise warrior and really be consistent with it was just an imperative for me to live. I've flatlined 8 times and then got bone marrow cancer. So being a wise warrior allows me to move through this journey. And now after sick 8 years, finally in remission in year 8, like who knew? Yeah, it really has been important. So I would say absolutely, the more work you do on yourself, it is possible the more layers you're peeling off, and they could be layers of the mask, they could be layers of training, and then what you discover beneath the surface is probably more likely your old soul. Let's see, anything else? And then I think Mish just put in my links. So if you want to take the test, the quiz, the word test, Sage Wisdom Institute is my membership site. So if you want to take any of our courses or have an inspirational membership, if anybody is interested in the inspirational membership, it's for just more than $1 a day. You actually get an email, a Daily Pearl email. Some of you may have my books, Daily Pearls, 365 Days of Sage Wisdom. In our inspirational membership, you'll actually get an email to start your day off with. Every day starts with a quote and then a story, musing, meditation from me. And I am happy to offer a 30-day free trial if you want to just message me. So you can DM me through Facebook. You can message me through sagebreslin.com. I'm happy to send you the link for a 30-day free trial if you want to experience that. I get them myself, and you'd think like, oh, if you wrote the book, would you just hit delete? No, I actually like it. I've gotten them for more than a year, obviously, and I still seem to get something out of each day that appears for me. So, oh, Sharon,
Yeah, don't read that out loud.
I won't. I'm sorry. Yeah. Um,
Maybe we can talk after
yeah, I have many thoughts. Just contact me privately and we can chat more.
on one of these links. I can contact you.
Yeah, my sagebreslin.com, it'll probably say you could do a book time with me, but there's also like a contact us at the bottom of the homepage where you
Okay.
could just click in and send me a message, and then I can speak back.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, absolutely. My pleasure. Well, we've come to the end of our time. If there are any more questions, you can also just message me, as I said, either on sagebreslin.com or through Facebook Messenger. I'm happy to talk with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sage, so much. This is amazing. And for everyone who joined, whether you're in Uncovering Spiritual Gifts or in the other communities, feel free. You will be getting an email, and the recording of the session will be gone on YouTube. So I'm just going to drop the link for the Facebook groups and the YouTube recording. So feel free, keep an eye on that. It will be up likely by Friday. But yeah, and then we have lots of events coming up. In 2 weeks, we'll be talking human design, and then we'll be talking some plant medicine. So if there's any other topics you'd like to see, just let me know. But thank you, Sage. This has been really
My
incredible.
pleasure.
Good time. Awesome. Yay. Any other
Thank
last
you.
questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I loved it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
You too.
Oh, it's getting dark. Yay. Awesome. Just here. Amazing. That was really informative. Thank you so much. That was, yeah, I totally identified with so many of those. That was fun.
I feel you.
Let me, oh,